what would you suggest a person would do to start identifying that influence in order to serve others?
I would start by asking them to observe who they're influencing already and what their behavior is that's influencing them. There's always somebody in your life that you're influencing. You just may not know it. Start thinking about who is in your orbit, in your sphere, in your proximity, that just by watching and observing you, you're actually influencing them. Maybe they start listening to the same podcast you're listening to. Whoever's married in here knows telling your husband or your partner what to do is never going to work. However, if you're modeling a way of being and you detach from anything as an outcome, all of a sudden you watch them eat better. You watch them get up earlier. So you are influencing people around you all the time. So I would start by noticing who you're influencing and what it is you're doing that's influencing them.
You're a CEO, entrepreneur, or business owner that can't seem to figure out what is blocking you from attaining the next level of growth in your business? Then listen up. I'm Maria De Laurentiis Reyes. I've taken what I've learned in 30 years working inside multi-million-dollar corporations, building my own business, and consulting my clients, and discovered 5 themes that stop a business from scaling. I've created a tool to help you get the answers you need to get unstuck and unlock the next level of growth. Head over to scale.mariadr.com and click the link to get your custom Scale Factor Formula scorecard when this episode is over.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Finding the Upside podcast and TV show of Maria's. Thank you all for being here. I would like for each of you just to introduce yourself really briefly for the podcast and let everybody know who you are and what you're all about.
Thank you so much. I'm Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, author, producer, and director.
I'm Stacey Uhrig, and I am a non-clinical trauma care practitioner.
I'm Chitra Rochlani, and I am an intuitive coach, an author, and a podcast host of The Warrior Mindset.
I'm Sal Rametta, and I help entrepreneurs differentiate themselves so they never show up like a commodity ever again.
That is awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay, I do have one question from the audience already, and it's for Tricia. What's the number one thing a speaker needs to do to be invited back?
That's such a great question. Show up early, end on time, be easy to work with when it comes to the tech team, and ask the host how you can support them, and also make sure the other speakers know how amazing they are.
That's great. Okay, do any of you guys have any questions that you would like to ask? Please use the microphone.
What are the things that you find the most challenging about getting your message out there?
Who wants to start?
I mean, I think the thing that would be most challenging is the fact that some people reject it. They don't want to hear it. And you have to kind of stay firm in your expertise and what you know to be true, and just continue to share it, knowing that at some point it might be something that they come back to.
I think the most challenging thing of the work that I do and I teach is that people want quick fixes. And I am anti-quick fix. So that's my biggest challenge, is to show them the value of doing the hard work and doing it all.
Yeah, I'd say let's not rob people of the opportunity to experience our work because of the judgments we put on our work or what they're going to think of our work, right? Let's just put it out there. Let the message breathe, declare it, and then we'll see the outcome and we'll experience the results. But don't rob people the opportunity to experience it.
And I'll just add to Sal and Chitra and Stacey, that if you have a message and you are not sharing it because you can't get on a stage or you don't have a platform, those are limiting beliefs. You can create your own stage, you can create your own platform. And so just know that if you have something really important to say, you have to be relentless at going after creating the platforms that you can share it from.
Anybody else? Questions? Okay.
And my question is for Stacy. You were mentioning about dealing with anxiety and trauma, and earlier I had suggested that when people are in the midst of the storm and sometimes getting their feelings and emotions and questions about themselves out during that time, it could be extra powerful instead of just letting it go and go and go. Like, what are your thoughts besides journaling? What can people do when they're like right in the midst of all of that to help them so it's not just an ongoing cycle?
And I think this is why I've developed this framework, right? Which I could only get into so much in the talk, but my clients will ask for that framework because they'll say, when I'm not with you and this will occur, because it will occur, what do I need to do? Like, what are the steps? And so, they end up getting I give them all kinds of tips and tools. They get worksheets, but I also make, like a screensaver for their phone, literally, that says heal, and it tells them step by step what to do if they get into that zone. And it's somewhat like meditation. It's a purposeful, intentional practice to say, okay, she told me, once when you're stuck because you feel it. So just recognizing it and not labeling it and just saying, okay, it's happening now. And instead of going into that panic because it's happening, you feel empowered when you have a framework that you can work through. And then when they can work through each part of that framework, like a meditation, it takes practice, but each time the goal is that we'll never have it. I'll use anxiety for an example. You need anxiety for certain things. Like if you're about to get hit by a car, I hope you feel anxious. Like you need to be able to activate and motivate. There is a purpose for it. The problem with anxiety from the majority of people is that it is overactive when it's not required. And so the goal is not to never have it. The goal is to diminish how often it shows up, how long it stays when it does show up, and the intensity of its duration. That's what we're really looking for. And making sure it's really coming in more in alignment to when it actually needs to be showing up in your system. So I think to answer your question, it's really having a framework to work through, because otherwise, if we don't have that structure, the part of your brain that needs to think is gonna be offline. That's why you need to give them something to kind of look at and hold on to.
And follow up to that, and this will be for all of you guys, what's your best tip for making these frameworks a practice that you actually do?
I mean, this is why I give it to them as a lock screen for their phone, honestly, because it's not gonna be intuitive right away. It will become, just like breathing, it'll be something that they can harness, but each one of us needs to give out some sort of tip and tool and trick at the beginning to help somebody start a new habit when it comes to working through an emotion.
Yeah. I think it comes down to commitment. And there's a man who's incredible. His name's Steve Hardison, who I got to spend some time with. And he talks about something called a mother's commitment. If you're a mother in the room, raise your hand. Okay. If your child's about to go hungry and there was someone standing in the way of your child eating, are you going to kill that person if need be? That's a mother's commitment. And so I think it comes down to commitment. It's easy to treat everything we're talking about as something we know we should do, we should get to. We treat it as the soft stuff. And I recently heard someone say, treat the soft stuff hard. And so what that would look like, something you can actually implement, put it on your calendar. Make it like it's the most important meeting you have with yourself, to take some time and immerse yourself in the HEAL framework, the SMILE framework, the self-forgiveness framework, right? You have the tools from today. So what are you going to do with it? Just commit to one of those things.
That's great advice. As a leader, how do you guys keep your mindset strong during tough times?
I can take that. I'll just say, I'm all about that mindset, right? The warrior mindset. So the first step in my 3 A's that I talk about in my book is awareness. You have to have awareness of what is going on in here before you can change it or turn it into something positive or upbeat. But if you don't have awareness, you can't change it, right? So step 1 is awareness. Step 2 is acceptance. That's the hard one, right? We know there are things we want to change, or we know there are thoughts that we have repeatedly that are not positive, but accepting that about ourselves is hard. And then when we have awareness and acceptance, we lean into action. So if you are starting to become aware of your mindset today for the first time, just keep at it. Sometimes, as Eckhart Tolle says in A New Earth, he says the awareness sometimes comes 2 days later. Sometimes after you've done it over and over, the awareness happens while you're actually having the negative thought. And then there will be a time when you'll have the awareness right before. And then you'll have the awareness when it's just starting to get triggered. So follow that awareness journey as it comes up, and then see how you can get ahead of it.
That's great. Anybody have any questions or follow-up so far? Use the microphone.
Yep. This is for Tricia. Tricia, I know that you were the producer for TEDx. Tell me if I got that right. TEDx Lincoln Square.
Yes.
And if you could share, if you will, why you stepped away from that, what were the reasons, and also elaborate on, there's so many TEDx platforms. There's one that just opened in Montclair now. Talk about that and what that means, and just kind of attach that to your reasons for stepping away from that platform.
Great question. I think one thing that I want to start by saying is that many speakers think they should take any stage that's offered to them, and it's actually not the case. You want to audition the event organizers and the conference planners just as much as they're auditioning you. And so it's really important that you vet the stages you're going to take so that they're aligned with your values. You know that there's going to be good video and audio assets that you can walk away with, that you're going to be in a room of speakers who are going to help lift you up and are going to add to your brand awareness. So it's really important that you understand that you need to vet the organizers that you choose to work with or that you choose to apply to speak on their stages. I loved being the TEDx Lincoln Square producer in New York City for 2 years. I produced the show just like a Broadway show. We had performers from Broadway singing, dancing. I had an MC. All of my speakers were well-trained and rehearsed. I knew that they were going to show up and deliver an amazing idea worth spreading. And I really loved being the organizer. And I'm a theater producer, and I want creative control. So I stepped away because I did not want to be boxed in to what the TED brand wanted for me. So I essentially outgrew that brand. And then I started creating my own events. I think that right now there was a massive explosion of TEDx events. And essentially it's like a franchise. When you are a TEDx producer, you have to apply to get your license. You're not paid. So you're paying to put on that event. You can sell tickets so you can recoup your costs that way, but you're not paid. And they don't teach you how to produce an event when you get your license. So they ask you all these questions about what's the idea worth spreading, what kind of town are you from, what's going on in your community, but they don't ask you if you know how to produce an event. Mm-hmm. So you get all of these folks becoming TEDx producers who have no idea that you need a team, that you need to provide script analysis for your speakers, that you need to provide coaching for them, good coaching, not pretend coaching. And so there are all of a sudden all these TEDx events that have been watered down because there's no quality control. And they're trying to do a better job at that. When you are a TEDx producer, you're required to show a film at the very top of your event. Every TEDx producer is required to do this. There's many requirements. You have to film it. You have to put them on YouTube. You can't sell from the stage. You can't make money, all the things. But you do have to show this film. And in the film, I believe Chris Anderson has stepped down at this point. But it's Chris Anderson talking about the amazing organization of TED and why TEDx was born, because we wanted to bring the events to communities, and that's amazing and altruistic. And essentially, the movie says, if this event sucks, it's not our fault. In so many words. They don't take responsibility for the quality of all of the other TEDx events. Now, they are trying to do a better job because there were so many challenges that had come up where people weren't filming the talks. And so all these speakers were going to these TED events and they weren't seeing the light of day. So it's super important that you vet any TED event that you're going to do, and also any event that you're going to do, because being a speaker is like being an athlete. You have to train. You don't just show up and wing it. You have to rehearse and write and practice and think about it and be in top shape as an athlete. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of intention and a lot of effort. And if you go to an event and they don't film you and you don't have an asset, that's a waste of your precious time and energy. So it's a business. This is a business. And I want you to think of yourself as a business, as a brand, as a speaker. And you want to make sure that you are only accepting events where, yes, you're contributing and serving, but you are also working at the top level in your field. Thank you for that question, Maria.
Follow up to that, there are so many TED-like coaches around on the internet. How do you choose the best coach if you want to do something like a TED Talk?
It's a great question. I do not believe you have to have done a TED Talk to be a good coach for the brand. I was a TEDx producer, so I understood the business model. I understood what an idea worth spreading is, because they give you a huge manual. So that gave me a little bit of street cred when it came to being able to say, I can support you in the framework of giving a TED Talk, of delivering a TED Talk, because it is a very unique style. It's an idea worth spreading. They don't allow pseudoscience. It's ideas. It's not pitching your business. If you pitch a TED organizer as a coach of some framework, you're not going to get on that stage. It's really about ideas, and that's super important. Unfortunately, many coaches are monetizing by calling themselves TED coaches. And if you are a TED speaker and you are now selling services and making money by teaching people to speak on TED stages, or by promising that you can get them on a TED stage, that's just a lie. We can't promise any results for our clients. None of us make promises. We can say, I'm going to give you the tools. Your success is in your hands. So if a client or a coach says, I promise you I'm going to get you on a TED stage, that's not the right coach, and that's not the right integrity. You want to work with somebody who says, I can teach you how to communicate effectively, and I'm really aware of what the TED platform is, which is an idea worth spreading, and together we can explore how to craft that for you, and here's where you can go to apply to events.
Questions? Anybody?
I love all of this. My brain hurts. There's this culture now, just to give like some context and backstory. I have 3 brothers, yet I am the son my father always wanted, in like so many ways, right? Grew up a tomboy, have worked with men for the last 15, 20 years. I used to work in mixed martial arts. And they do what Sal does, but basically on the athlete level. I am the greatest. Muhammad Ali said that before he was the greatest. But on the emotional, spiritual level, they have an issue with it. Not all men, but some men. And there's this huge talk with like toxic masculinity and all this stuff, and I don't necessarily believe that. This is June, it's Mental Health Awareness Month for men specifically, and I have such a immense compassion for them. So as the only man that spoke, can you talk a little bit about what you do and your emotional intelligence, and what's that like specifically for men, and how women can actually support them to feel more comfortable with it as well?
That is a loaded question. As the only man in the room, and it's really funny because I've found myself in this situation since I started speaking about 4 years ago. The majority of stages have been all women. So I think
Amen to
maybe
that.
I'll just ride that out.
Hey, woman.
I think it's just necessary. I think I come from I'm first generation here. I come from a family of people who immigrated here from Italy. And so growing up, like I think Maria alluded to this before, growing up, you didn't talk about depression, anxiety. It wasn't a thing. Part of me appreciates how I grew up. 'Cause we learned to power through, we learned work ethic. But the direction the world's going in now, I just feel like it's necessary to be more in tune with our mental fitness. It's harder. It's a harder world to raise kids in than it was 30, 40 years ago, I think. And that's my experience. It's a harder world for many reasons. And so for me, it's just a necessity. If I don't spend the time, do the inner work, I'm not going to be as good as I can in business. I won't be as active as I am in the gym. I won't be a great father. I won't be a great husband. And so I think I really appreciate you because we don't hear that a lot, what you just shared about kind of advocating for men. I didn't even know this month was Men's Health Awareness. So thank you for the awareness around that.
Several of you all have transitioned from one business to a different business or one type of work to your own business. How did you make the decision to take the leap?
Honestly, it was a whisper. I can honestly say that I was in a different business. I've had a varied career, and there was just a constancy in my ear of the word coach. I didn't even know what that meant. I had never worked with one before. I heard coach, I heard mentor, and I think it was kind of guides, what have you, that were like, you've had enough lived experience now, teach. And I literally kept hearing it. And I said to my husband, I think I'm supposed to be a coach. He's like, what? And I'm like, I'm just hearing it. He's like, okay. And I ran with it. There was something that was so authentically aligned to it. As I began to research what it was, I was like, that's exactly. So I don't know who from above, beyond was guiding me. But for me, it was truly a whisper. And I listened, and I think that that's kind of it.
I'm so glad you listened. So I will just add to that one of the clues that I find over and over again with myself and when I work with my clients is that when you are aligned with your most authentic self, I know that word has been thrown around a lot, but it really, when it comes down to the depth of it, the closer you get to your true spirit, the more opportunities start to open up, the more whispers start to come in, the more people start telling you, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. So for me, it was literally getting to know my spirit really, really well, and then honoring what my spirit wanted, what it needed, and then going out after that. And then the world that I was living in, was different from what was going on inside. So finding my way took a while. So I kept pivoting until I found my way. And some people might say you've done so many different things, but I think there's a common thread that goes in behind all of them, which is empowerment. So just follow that voice and lead with your inner authentic self.
Alignment. Again, I just go back to alignment. For me, I was hearing the whispers, but I wasn't listening to them for so long. And then 2020, I brought home my second son the weekend the world shut down, March 19, 2020. And at first it was a blessing. I had worked weekends my whole life. Weekends, they didn't exist socially. It was work. And that was okay until I had children. And so I started to hear the whispers, like, I need to pivot. I need to do something different. This isn't allowing me to be the type of husband or father I want to be. And then 2020 happened. I had no choice but to listen. The whispers became screams. And then I listened to more whispers, and it just led me down a path. I was open to it, connected with the right people, was really aware of who was in my circle, who I was in proximity to, and I'm really, really grateful that I did.
That's great. Anybody have other questions?
I have a question. And this could be for somebody who needs to tell it or all of you. What is the best piece of advice that you got that you didn't want at the time?
I can go. This is easy for me. I've gotten a lot of advice that I didn't want to hear because I have put myself in front of coaches and paid them good money. So coaching works. But I was working with a coach at one time, and she told me, I was a fitness and nutrition coach at the time, and I was helping women get off of pre-diabetic states. And I was charging them $250 for the entire plan for 3 months. And my coach looked at me and she said, I will not let you charge this anymore. You have to charge them at least 4 times that amount. And I looked at her like she was crazy. And I was like, there is no way in hell anyone's gonna pay me that much. And she looked at me and she says, if you utter that number out of your mouth again, I will not coach you anymore. And I was like almost terrified. But the next week I had a client that came up and I sold her a package for 4 times that. And you know what she said to me? That's reasonable. Because she said to me, she said, it's not what you're giving them. It's not just a meal plan or an exercise plan. You are taking them off of medication that they would have been on. What is that worth to them? And when I started seeing my work through that lens, it was like eye-opening. And I was like, did she just say that's reasonable? And then I never looked back again. That was it. But it was so good. I am so glad she called me out on that.
Charge your worth.
I have 2 quick ones on this. What got you here is not what's going to get you there. And to have the things that you never had, you have to do the things you've never done.
All right,
Any other questions?
Yeah. All right, this one's for Tricia. What would you suggest a person would do to start identifying that influence in order to serve others? Like, how would you help them? What would you suggest they do to start honing in what it is that will influence others in a way of service?
I would start by asking them to observe who they're influencing already and what their behavior is that's influencing them. There's always somebody in your life that you're influencing. You just may not know it. Start thinking about who is in your orbit, in your sphere, in your proximity, that just by watching and observing you, you're actually influencing them. Maybe they start listening to the same podcast you're listening to. Whoever's married in here knows telling your husband or your partner what to do is never going to work. However, if you're modeling a way of being and you detach from anything as an outcome, all of a sudden you watch them eat better. You watch them get up earlier. So you are influencing people around you all the time. So I would start by noticing who you're influencing and what it is you're doing that's influencing them. And then you can start to model that in business and as a professional, not only for yourself, for your family, your community, but also for your clients. Influence isn't about telling people anything. It's about being and reflecting back on the person so that they can see what you see in them.
That's amazing. Other questions? All right, well, we have just a few seconds left to wrap up this episode of Finding the Upside podcast. We're so happy to be here with all of you, Tricia Brouk, Stacey Urig, Chitra Rochlani, and Sal Rametta. Thank you all for joining us.
All right, so I hope you loved this episode and found it valuable. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you'd be so kind, if you know someone else that this will help, please share this episode with them. Just grab a link for this specific episode, text it to a friend or colleague so it can help more people like you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you next time for more entrepreneurial goodness. Same time, same place on the Finding the Upside podcast.